I'm on a quest to find music and art. Supporting local talent is the place I start. Yeah, this is our culture, the place to be. Games, books, arts, and crafts and jewelry. This the guardians of the geekery. 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 And now for today's episode of Guardians of the Geekery with your hosts, Matt, Carol, and Joey.
Holy moly, welcome to another installment of the Guardians of the Geekery podcast, the Geekery Market 2024 edition. Of course, the Geekery Market coming at you Saturday, November 9th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Cabarrus Arena and Event Center. Don't forget that part. Over 30,000 square feet of geeky goodness. It's almost too much, but not really, because you can never have too much geeky goodness. And also, we have parking spaces galore, over 2,000 parking spaces, so ample parking, no problemo there. And of course, why do we do it? Well, we like to support our friends who have these geeky habits and geeky fascinations like we do, but also Second Harvest Food Bank. Please bring a non-perishable item to donate to help them out. They do some really great work in the community. We're really excited to partner with them once again. But hey, this is crazy. We already had a pre-conversation, and Joey's like, "We have to press this record button. We're losing all this good conversation." That's always a very good sign. I would say when you're talking to somebody. We're talking to Sean from Functional Mud, and you've got to check out his Etsy page. And also, there's a market spotlight at thegeekery.com. And is that right, Joey? Thegeekerymarket.com.
Yeah.
Geekerymarket.com. Geekerymarket.com. Sean's already done a spotlight, so you can have some additional flair there. But why? Because you can listen to it. And then if you're listening and not viewing, it's over on our YouTube channel. Got to check it out because I think Sean, just his background already fascinates me in his studio. So anyway, you've got to do yourself. Don't pull over right now when you're driving your car. Get to a safe spot, safety first, and then watch. Enough of that. Hey, Sean, welcome. Woo! Hey,
thank you very much, Matt. Good morning. Good morning, Joey. Good morning, Carol. Appreciate this opportunity. This is absolutely wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you have actually been at the Geekery Market multiple times at this point. You have been in our small space, and then last year you were in our big space.
Well, actually, I've only been there once. It was when we were down in Charlotte, the one in February of last year. February.
Yes. Yes.
I wasn't able to make the one in November of the same year. We were occupied here at the house, but the opportunity to come back this November and be in the big space down in Cabarrus, really looking forward to that. We had an absolutely wonderful time back in February, and sorry I missed the November, but I think coming back to this one, I think we're set and ready to go for our second time there.
So you've missed out all the geeky goodness we had last year. So lots of space and all sorts of stuff. But so you have been with us before, but I thought you were there last year, but I think now that you're saying it, I remember that you ended up having a conflict. So, so glad to have you back. And you are Functional Mud. So talk a little bit about why your name is Functional Mud versus, guy that does the clay stuff or whatever. Something clever like that. But
I don't know. I think Functional Mud is actually very clever.
No, I think Functional Mud is extremely clever. I think guy with the clay is not as clever, is what I was trying to say.
It's a lot to put on a business card, and guy who does the clay.com. It's just like that. Well, it was not too long ago, I was digging through some files and came up with this scrap of paper, had a bunch of different, what had come up with was a brainstorm of different shop names that we had, and there was stuff like Mudslingers, which I think is already taken. I don't know if we had exactly guy who does the clay. But working through these different ideas of what the name of the shop would be, we came up with Functional Mud because I don't do a whole lot of sculptural. I can do sculptural, and I've done sculptural artwork that can go out in the yard, that can go up on the shelf. But most of the stuff I make is functional. I like pieces that can be used. Cups, bowls, mugs, plates, pitchers, anything that you can actually use in the house to make it functional, that people can actually use this stuff that I make. And so I thought Functional Mud, just kind of set it there. And it doesn't it didn't put me in such a pigeonhole to say Middle Earth wares or Star Wares, to lock me into. I only do Star Wars stuff. I only do Middle Earth things. So I kept it broad, kept it open, but I think it drilled down to I want people to use the products that I make, and I don't assign roles to the piece I make. If you want a mug and you want to put pencils in it, put pencils in it. If you want to put a flower in it, knock yourself out. If you actually want to drink tea out of one of my mugs, good on you. So it's totally open to what you want to do with the products you purchase.
That's and you don't limit yourself to one or two fandoms. You have like pieces from all sorts of different fandoms, don't you?
I have tried to stretch it across. I started out with Lord of the Rings. And if you don't mind, I'll go into a history of it right now. Unless this
is go right on ahead, because I need to get myself a prancing pony mug. I'm sorry.
No, let's please do. Actually, the first one I made was a prancing pony mug because once the Lord of the Rings films came out and all the merchandise was out there and all the cool stuff that people were making, I never found a mug that had the prancing pony on it. The little the design of prancing pony, which I've got a sign back there that my father made. And so I thought, if it doesn't exist, I should probably make one, which I think that anyone who does cosplay, who makes props, who does anything, if it doesn't exist, you find a way to make it so you've got that for yourself. So I made a prancing pony mug. My father helped me out. He built the stamp that goes into the clay, and then I put the stamp on the mug. And I said, okay, look, I've made a prancing pony mug. Who else would like one? Anyone? Yes, more people. There you go. We got one there.
Well, yeah, us too.
Yeah. And so it started there. So it was basically something doesn't exist. I want it. And I searched high and low for a prancing pony mug. And at the time, this was probably 2013 that I started this. There was still nothing out there. I couldn't find it. But now you can go to a lot of places to find the wooden mugs, the handmade wood mugs, absolutely beautiful. And other people do ceramic, prancing pony, green dragon, all the other different Lord of the Rings themes I have. So it started with Lord of the Rings, and I thought, well, maybe I could do Star Wars, another geekdom of mine.
Yes.
And so, mine too.
I can tell, yeah. And so it all started with building something that didn't exist, and I wanted it, so I made it myself.
I've got to tell you. Oh yeah, I've got to tell you. I mean, I have a few mugs. I've shifted from a coffee drinker to a tea drinker primarily, but it just I order a mug, and then even if it's an Etsy shop sometimes, and then I look at the bottom and it's made in China, and I'm like, why did I have to get a mug from across the world? And then here you are just reminding me that, hey, you can get something really cool. And on your Etsy shop too, you can, I've seen it in person, but if Etsy shop, it does give a really good perspective on these are much sturdier mugs than your average mug you might get off of Amazon or something like that.
Yeah, but, that's a review.
Very cool.
Yeah, that it's a sturdy mug. The reviews that I get are often cite it's a sturdy mug. It's like, well, I like to make something that's got some heft to it. Even the mugs I make for myself, this is one I call wrist breaker, and that's probably a 4-ounce mug, and that's just one I use, in my everyday. And everything in our house, well, I won't say everything, all the cups, bowls, plates, and mugs up in my cabinet I've made. So I get the idea of you want to make something and it feels like it has quality or heft. But it also has a personalized handmade feel to it. And so you can look at all the mugs and say, and some people can appreciate what they might see as a flaw, or they'll look at the glaze like, oh, that glaze is really cool. How'd you do that? It's like, I'm not telling. But they'll see the little bits
smart man.
They'll see the little bits and pieces of it and really appreciate the handmade, how this glaze flows into this glaze, and it's got a transition there. And sometimes you don't see that when you look at the bottle. It's like made in China, or wherever else it's made. Not made. Should just say not handmade on the bottom. I was like, oh, I guess I know what.
Love it.
And how do you care for a mug like that? Is there extra steps you have to take when you have one of your mugs, or is it machine washable, microwave friendly? What are we dealing with?
It is absolutely dishwasher safe and microwave safe.
Yes.
My man. My
The-
man.
the
I was hesitant to say this because I love your mug so much, but
Thank you.
I have a very strict rule in my house. If it cannot go in the dishwasher and the microwave, it does not belong in my hands because I'm gonna forget there's gold filigree on there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna forget that the heat transfer, like I've had heat transfers melt right off into my dishwasher. And
Yes.
I am a busy woman. I am not the domestic goddess you would think. I mean, goddess, yes, domestic, no. So,
Right.
you know, I'm not gonna, and this is the thing that I love so much is I was pretty sure yours were dishwasher or microwave safe because it's always the very first thing I look at, and true to word, it was. So, that is amazing, and the fact that you could have a whole house full of your mugs and bowls and plates and I don't know. And clay is like wood to me. Um, it has a feel. It has a life to it that some of these other, like a melamine plate or something like that, that's just so manufactured, doesn't have it. But like you said, the way the glaze hits something or the way the colors flow, it just has life and movement, and you feel something more when you're drinking or eating off of one of your pieces. So I'm very excited.
It gives it that very human, you know that someone's touched it. I was at a museum, the Met up in New York, and there were some clay sculptures that John Lorenzo Bernini did. And Bernini, if you don't know, was a Baroque sculpture artist and did some absolutely amazing pieces that if you think like, oh, Michelangelo, he was the top of his game, which he was, Bernini blows him out of the water. The point is, there were some clay sculptures, some maquettes that Bernini had done, and you can see his thumbprint in the clay that he built this thing. It's like, wow, that adds, you read about people, artists from history, and you only see their work, but to see that their human hands were actually on the piece. You can study some artworks and see paintings, and there's like a little brush hair that got left into the painting to know that that human there had their hands on it. And so it's very much the same with some of my mugs. You might see a thumb dent here, or it might be wonky just ever so slightly. Go, you know what? That's not exactly round, but then the earth isn't round either, so it's all okay. But it gives it that it's not absolutely perfect. And the Japanese call that wabi-sabi. And wabi-sabi is perfection in the imperfection. You find beauty in what is imperfect, and it's still beautiful.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I want to get back to talking about your work because I can go on little rabbit trails. My team knows this.
Good.
But one of my most favorite experiences was going to see the collection of Norman Rockwell when it was up in the Cary, North Carolina Museum. And a lot of people think of Norman Rockwell and they think of the Saturday Evening Post covers and almost the caricature type, expressions and stuff like that. But seeing his pieces so I have this huge book of his that when I was a kid, I would lie on the floor and just pore over the pages. But when you see his works in person and some of his, because although he did humorous pieces, he did some very timely political pieces. And like one of them is there's a picture that he did, there's a portrait that he did of Ruby Davis, one of the first segregated children, walking between these MPs. And there is the tomatoes that were thrown at her, there are the words, and seeing the way that he used the paint and the layers, where you could actually feel that venom of the tomatoes thrown against it, or the swooping of the paint. And it's not something you can really comprehend on a 2D page. You have to see it in person. And it's just so powerful. And it was one of the quietest museum experiences because as people looked at things, they could really absorb, like paint, also like clay, and wood, that vibe that was in there, that energy that was in there. And there's another painting that he did of the city of Jerusalem, and the color yellow that he used literally made it that it was like the glow of the city lights, and it was that kind of feel. So it was just amazing. So I love what you're talking about. That's what makes it so great, and why you should be getting that and not worrying about getting a Stanley Cup or whatever it is. It's like, you could get one of what everybody else has, or you could get something that's truly unique and has a vibe and a feel to it that your Stanley Cup is never going to have. You can have a Stanley Cup too. I mean, it's okay. Just put cool stickers on it from some of our other sellers, then we're good. But get you a mug from Functional Mud. Get you a piece from Functional Mud and really get that extra vibe. Yeah. So show us.
Hey, Joey, you were talking about sling, and I was wondering if you'd be open to slinging some mud for us.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
We could do that. We can absolutely do that. Yeah, give me about half a minute. I'm going to move my.
No worries.
There and adjust it.
I'm loving all the pieces on your wall, by the way. No. Oh my gosh, there's ones on the ceiling too. Okay.
Well,
clearly,
let me tell you about the ceiling real quick. Is that during COVID lockdown, my wife and I made puzzles.
Oh, cool.
Oh my God.
Lockdown, I stuck them up on the ceiling as just something, as a reminder that, what we all went through with them, and tried to stay sane and try to stay happy and safe with everybody.
Yeah, I did the same thing, and then I got kittens, and that puzzle making kind of stopped.
The kitten culprits.
Okay. So
hey, Sean, your studio is completely solar, is that correct?
Yes, we got solar panels on the front of our house. We got those probably 2 years ago. And so as long as the sun's out, it'll feed the studio. And kiln, I'm not sure if you can see the kiln behind me here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Fire everything. And that thing will, if we're not careful, that'll suck up a city block of energy because it gets really, really hot for a long time. And so we thought that going solar was the most responsible thing to do, just to keep this thing going. But thank you for bringing that up. Yes, it's
I love it.
Solar power. So what I've got is about 1 pound 4 ounces of clay, and this will make a mug, and they'll make about a 16-ounce mug, give or take. So I'll have you know, I've never done this live on the camera.
Oh, I love it.
This is the first time. So
we're going to treat it like the first pancake when you make a fresh batch, right? You always have to the wabi-sabi of the imperfections.
It could go poorly. It very much could.
But that's okay. That's part of the beauty of the process.
Exactly. So the one of the toughest parts about throwing clay is getting it centered. It has to be in the very center of the wheel. And if not, the whole thing just gets off center. So my attempt here is to press down, get this clay stuck to the wheel head, and get it centered. Then I can go in the center, push my thumbs in, pull out to the sides.
Oh, wow.
And then create the hole. And then I got to flatten out the bottom of it, smooth it, and compact it down.
Hey, Sean, how long did it take you to get to that level? Because I remember playing in art school with that, and mine never looked like that. It was all over me and walls.
20 years. I've been doing this for 20 years. So every time I do it, it's always a learning experience. In fact, I've got the very first cup I ever made. It's sitting right over there. And it's got the date of October of 2003, I believe, is the first one I ever made.
Oh,
and
goodness.
it's just wonky, just weird looking piece. So it just takes it's muscle memory and patience and having an idea what sometimes you can make the clay look like you want it to. Sometimes the clay will say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm doing something else. The clay, let's go with it. And so I'm pressing in from the outside with my sponge. I've got my fingers on the inside and I'm slowly pinching the clay and pulling that straight up.
Wow.
Into a cylinder. And then once I get it to the height that I want, I can press it out, create like a little belly. That gives it more volume.
Ooh.
And then when I'm happy with it, I've got a little tool here, and this will create a foot underneath. I've got a metal rib, and that flexible metal rib will pull all the slurry off the side, so that reduces the weight of it just a little bit, cleans up the outside edge. And then I've got this, it's a sponge on a stick is basically what it is. And pull all the excess water that was left on the inside of my vessel. And then I've got a wire here. Wire that thing off. That is how.
That is awesome.
That is amazing.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Live.
That's what I do, and that's I enjoy doing it, and that's the basis for making almost every. Excuse me. There we go. I'm here. Basis for making all the piece, almost all the pieces that I do.
Do you do this full time?
As much as I'm allowed to, yeah. This is my day job. I used to be a middle school art teacher, and I was a middle school art teacher for probably 13 years, and then really wanted to give a shot at it and say, I'll be a house husband and a potter, and see if we can make this work. So everything I make, my living, my half the living comes through Etsy and making all the pots and mugs and bowls and cups. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's
so
awesome.
cool.
Thank you.
I love that. And you mentioned at the beginning, and I want to kind of go back to that. You said your dad had made the wooden stamp. So it sounds like you come from a family of creative people. So your dad does some woodworking or some rubber making with the stamp part of it. Tell us a little bit about that too.
Actually, my dad started out, when I knew him, he was a chemist, and then he's always had his side hobbies. So he made the prancing pony sign out of wood. He does stained glass. He made the little the very first stamp I ever used. And so he's just a very creative force on his own, and he's made some really amazing stuff. For a while there, if you dig back in the Etsy site, you'll see these Samwise Gamgee salt boxes.
Ooh.
He made me probably 10 of those things, and he gave them to me to sell them on the site. And within 48 hours, all 10 of those little salt boxes.
They're just little salt boxes. Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. He does some crazy, amazing stuff. And my mother too, she's a crafter. They're both, of course, in their retirement ages. And so she does some absolutely wonderful crafting as well. So yes, it kind of filtered down. And
so when you talk about a family-based business, it really is a family-based business.
If not inspired by, then yes, it is. So I think if for whatever reason you want to get us all three together, you'd probably have my dad's stained glass that he is really good at, and his woodwork. My mother's crafting, the knitting, the sewing, the painting that she does, and then all the pottery stuff I do here, whether it's make there's a Green Dragon mug or the Star Trek mugs that I'm bringing to the
yes.
And so yeah, I've got all this cool stuff that I do, and I just want to share it with everybody.
That is
Sean,
so cool.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Sean, you're a veteran, is that correct, sir?
I am a veteran. I served 5 years in the Marine Corps, and then 10 years later, I went 3 years in the Army.
Wow.
Well, we thank you for your service, but we also thank you for your craft.
I appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Sean,
you're a rebel. You went from the service to the rebel. Sorry.
Okay. It was actually so I was 1 week before I deployed to Iraq in 2005. You got to figure out where your mindset is. You're being taken away from your home, your family, your car, your job. You're leaving all this behind. And I was gone for 14 months. And I figured, what am I going to do with my time beforehand? It was coming down to it. And I saw a class called A Week on the Wheel. And this was up in Winston-Salem. And I thought, you know what I want to do before I go to Iraq? I want to do pottery. So I went and took a class. And that's how I spent my week before we deployed, was learning pottery. And then I got back and thought, you know what, I want to do this again. That made my heart happy. It got my brains to do, got my
And
hands.
now you do it for a living.
And now
It's always wonderful when you can get a job that makes your heart happy.
Yes, yes, it is. Very much.
Carol, your job doesn't make your heart happy selling dental supplies? Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. That is amazing. So you showed us Star Trek and you showed us some others. Do you have any others you can show us?
I like to make the Hobbit door mugs.
Sweet.
And you probably can't see it. I carve in Gandalf's rune.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
I have that on my door.
If you exactly.
I actually have that on my door.
Yes.
It's really good to getting away certain religious solicitors.
Oh, nice.
They have no idea what it means, so they tend to stay away.
Nicely done. Well thought out. Of course, the Star Wars and the Star Trek, these are going to be event exclusives. Apparently, Viacom doesn't like me selling these on Etsy. So we will take them to the event. So I'll have my red and blue, and I'll bring some yellow ones too.
Sweet.
I'm trying to move into Pokemon.
That's cool.
I'm going to try to bring some of these. Y'all know what that is? Come on, geeks.
That's the leaf of Gadriel. I actually have it. I have a shelf.
Leaf.
Yeah, the Aragon leaf. I actually have. So I told you before we started recording, as you can see we have different rooms with different themes, and you can't tell in this little corner because that painting is a Norman Rockwell type Saturday Evening Post, but the rest of this room is based on Tolkien, Lord of the Rings kind of thing. And I actually have a live edge shelf, and the brackets are the leaves of Aragorn.
Yes, that's what I put on the bottom of these.
Yes,
that's cool.
So I made a little Malorn platter and put leaves on the bottom. So it's just stuff that I do. It's stuff that I enjoy making. There's a chamber stick or a candlestick holder, and I think it works for geeks of all different IPs, and also for I got some SCA folks that come through and like to get a candlestick holder or a peerage mug or some such thing. So it's really open. If someone comes to the shop and says, I want such and such, it's like, I'll give it a shot. I'll try and make that for you. It falls under functional mud, I can give it a shot.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. And you take pre-orders as well. So if people know that they want a set of the Star Trek mugs, one of each color, maybe 2 reds, because we know one of the reds is going to die, right? So they could go on your site and contact you. We have, if they go to the Geekery Market Spotlight for Functional Mud, we have your email address and contact information in there. They can email you ahead of time, pay for it ahead of time. And remember, Geekery Market math, if you prepay for it, then when you get to the event, it's almost like it's free because you have more money in your pocket to spend on other things.
Exactly. So, save on the shipping. Yeah, you save on the shipping. So yeah, if people want to come to the Etsy site and say, whatever they want, I'll be happy to make it. Give me about 3 weeks lead time to make sure I can get it made and get it done, and I'll show up to the event with their toy.
You'll have your stuff already prepackaged, and that'll give you more time to look at the rest of the stuff. Absolutely. So and just make sure that you go and get that from it. Well, Sean, if did we ask you what the first piece you sold was?
I think the very first piece I sold was a prancing pony mug.
Sweet.
And it was, like I said, it was the one that my dad made the stamp. I've upgraded the stamps to have more detail in it, but somewhere back here in one of these boxes, I've still got that
original stamp
my father made. So the ones I have now, I've got a friend out in California, Gromit's Leather. He's also on Etsy, makes some outstanding leather work, cosplay pieces. And he's the one who makes the stamp for me. Apparently he has this really cool toy called a Glow Forge, which I guess that's the that kind of toy that makes the stamps. And just to show you, so here's the Tree of Gondor stamp. So there's the like that.
Yeah.
And so that's what he makes for me. So it's a great collaboration. I make him mugs for his shop. He makes me stamps. We trade stuff. And it kind of keeps us in business together.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Sean, I need to ask you a personal question.
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind.
Not at all.
When you're ever working late there in the studio, does the ghost of Patrick Swayze ever just kind of come around and help you make the?
I had to. Not right now, Patrick. I'm working. Please.
And he says, "Ditto."
That's good.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, not a problem, though. It's
hard-hitting journalism here this morning.
This just in: the Star Wars door locked from the outside for some reason. Right up those stairs. That's as far as he is.
That's really funny. No, I tell you, actually, the a usual day out here is I'll get out here about 8 o'clock in the morning, crank the music up really loud, and I'm glad we got about 2 acres of space around us, so the neighbors aren't hearing Led Zeppelin. It turned up to 11, and I'll just I'll come out here.
It goes to 11.
I'll come out here and just throw, or I've got a kiln full of pieces right now that I need to fire, and then glaze those, and then refire them again. And so it's kind of it's a rolling process.
That's awesome.
Yeah, whether Patrick Swayze's here or not. So it's
okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sean.
Yeah.
This has been, I think this was our first demonstration on the podcast.
Yes. Yeah, no, I love it. It will inspire future episodes. So make sure that you check out Functional Mud. You can find them on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find them on the geekerymarket.com website. Make sure you go ahead and pre-order, because I have a funny feeling he's only going to be able to carry so many in his car. So if you see one that you want, it's going to be like those little salt shakers. You think, oh, he's got 10. And then the next thing you know, they're going to be gone, dude. So you got to pay for them in advance. So make sure you get them. Make sure you stop by and say hi. And thank you so much for letting us go into your workshop. I feel like you need to have a PBS or an HGTV show. You can show us different things that you're doing, the new Yankee workshop kind of situation, but in North Carolina. So I would watch that show. So
wonderful.
So thank you.
Joey, thank you very much. Matt and Carol, good to meet all of y'all. Thank y'all very much for this. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person.
Yeah, just a couple months. Yeah,
yep.
We'll see you soon.
All right, excellent. Thank y'all very much.
Bye.
That was an episode of Guardians of the Geekery. Thank you for listening. Check us out at guardiansofthegeekery.com and stay tuned for more content.